qualified immunity. Just what is qualified immunity?
So qualified immunity is a court's doctrine that alleviates police officers and other government officials from facing any sort of financial liability. So, for example, that $27 million that George Floyd's family got, that $12 million that Breonna Taylor's family got, that $20 million that William Green's family got, those monies largely come from taxpayers. And then we go to cities like Chicago. They don't even have enough money in their budget to pay it. So after they finished appropriating money, they take out what are called police brutality bonds. This money largely falls on taxpayers, including Black and brown communities that are overly policed. Part of what people are saying with addressing qualified immunity is that now police officers and police departments take some of that financial burden, if not all of it. And one of the main recommendations that I've had, along with some of my colleagues, is creating police department insurance policies and police officer liability insurance so that the officers don't just come out of pocket to try to pay for things that they don't have the money for, but that insurance covers it. And then those insurance companies become another form of accountability, because as people know when they drive a car all the time, if you have enough accidents, then all of a sudden the insurance company is going to say you are no longer insurable. That has happened to some police officers in smaller municipalities, and we need it to become the norm instead of the exception.
Is that something you think can be done on a fast basis, or quick term basis?
I think so. So the state of Colorado and Denver has moved forward with this. They did a lot of this work in 2020. I think they become the exemplar. So first, they abolished qualified immunity at the state's level. Okay, then they had to figure out, okay, since that's the case, what's going to happen now? Well, what they did was they put in a plan for police departments to have insurance policies, and then officers to pay these civilian payouts for police misconduct up to $25,000, either out of pocket or with the insurance policy, which is what most officers are doing. They are now getting a malpractice insurance policy to cover themselves. And so not only is it going to be the city or the municipality or even the state making decisions on whether or not officers should be decertified, but then the insurance company is going to play a role in this. We've seen this in other places around the country, like in East Tennessee, in Inkster, Michigan, and places outside of LA, where small municipalities have had insurance risk pools. And because of those insurance risk pools, when a settlement is so large, the insurance company has said, we can no longer insure your officers, or like in the case of a department outside of LA, they said we can no longer afford to insure your department. And that bad department was closed. And all of a sudden, we started having more equitable outcomes because of it.
And I won't belabor this point, but can police officers really afford this? We already see they're under great pressure, a high incidence of suicide. I mean, how do we handle this?
Well, look, without a doubt, I think policing is probably the most difficult job we have in America. And you just noted that there's a study that I've been able to analyze some data on showing that about 80% of police officers suffer from chronic stress, depression, anxiety, marital problems, anger issues. And then you have about a sixth of them who are suicidal or who report substance abuse problems because of the things they see and experience on a daily basis. Here goes the kicker. 90% of them never seek help. So one of the other recommendations that we have in our Brookings report, along with the American Enterprise Institute and Cato, is that we're recommending that officers get mandatory psychological counseling. We are also mandating that they get incentives to live in the neighborhoods where they actually police. Because see, this is one of the things. A majority of white officers do not live in or close to the neighborhoods that they are policing in. They don't experience those communities. They don't know those communities. But Black and Latino officers do. But I do think that there need to be incentives. As you know, trying to live in Washington, D.C. is extremely expensive. So there have to be certain incentives set up. But when it comes to mental health, that is a big problem. But this goes back to thinking about insurance. This is not for officers to have to pay out of pocket. They don't make enough money to pay $1 million in settlements. That would just be frivolous and irresponsible, not only to the victim's family, but then also the assailant in these cases. But this is what insurance is for.
Can you name, because we're running out of time, a couple of other initiatives that might really make a difference?
Yeah, I think some of the other things that'll make a difference at the local level We need to have community oversight boards. The state of Maryland has mandated this. I think the example here is the city of Nashville, where the oversight board literally has votes on the internal police misconduct board. I think that is central for what's going on. And then also we need to think about shifting or reallocating calls for service when it comes to traffic calls, when it comes to mental health. Denver is a really good example there.
Well, you have at least some areas to really zero in on, particularly qualified immunity, almost like medical malpractice insurance. It's fascinating, and we really appreciate it. And thank you so much, Dr. Ray, for being here with us on State of Play.
Thank you for having me.